Growing up on the outer edge of the state of Idaho's biggest population zone, I've never been far from nature. Camping trips in the Boise National Forest and day hikes at Jump Creek were my childhood, even though my mom hates to camp and I'm not even in the rural bits of the state. One of the most obvious benefits to living in Idaho was the beauty, and my family certainly took advantage of our area. But for me, Idaho beauty doesn't mean the forests and the mountains in the north or the rivers or rolling hills of the valleyed south. Idaho beauty to me is the sky. I've always loved the stars especially. The window in my childhood bedroom had a gorgeous view of the sky to the south of my city, which led to wonderful stargazing. I remember punching out my window screen each December to my mother's protest, leaning out my window and locating the winter constellation Orion. Every year, like clockwork, I would see his great form stretching across my sky, and I would squint my eyes, and sometimes, if I looked just right, I could locate the sword hanging from his 3-starred belt. I loved it on that windowsill. I would sit there for what felt like hours and watch the clouds go by, lit by the moon's dim light, and point out the constellations I barely knew, while the crisp early winter air blew into my bedroom. My body temperature runs warm, so I like the cold, but that's not the only reason why my stargazing was limited to the months between October and March. For one, I would often be tired by the time the sun set in the peak of the summer. And for another, even if I had stayed up, there would have been few to no stars for me to see in the first place. Fire season in Idaho tends to start in June or July with the season's first wildfire and runs through the summer to the first rainfall of the autumn. Usually the fires are worst in August, when the air is hazy to the eye and the air quality index reaches hazardous levels. It's hot, and it's stuffy, and I have to carry my asthma inhaler with me basically wherever I plan to do any exercise, even light. This year, I was out of the state for the earliest bits of the fire season, visiting my college campus on the East Coast. I returned from my 2-week vacation on June 24th to 90-degree weather when my plane landed at midnight. The daytime temperatures during the week or so before my return had been above 100 degrees Fahrenheit every day. And I was informed upon asking why in heaven's name it was so hot so early, we were in a drought. The day after I returned, my friend and I went on an evening drive. It was then that I was viscerally reminded of fire season. We were out at sunset, and I looked out the window to see a glaring red sun, a sole blotch of color on the grayest sky I'd seen in several fire seasons. Every year I am struck by the grotesqueness of fire season in much the same way, but this one really got me. I miss sunsets. It's been a month since I got back. The air quality is so bad this year that I cannot fully take in my final month living in this beautiful state. I can't camp, or at least not the way I did as a child with a campfire and s'mores. A hike is impossible in this air with my lungs. The beautiful sunsets are gone, replaced by smoky grayish skies with a red blotch of the sun, and I haven't seen clouds for 2 days in a row since early June. Air quality means more than just man-made toxins and chemicals and farming. It does mean all of those things, but especially for those of us living a life in the Pacific Northwest, it also means the stunningly terrifying reality of fire season. It means that our grandparents can't leave the house. It means that kids can't play fall sports because practices are canceled. It means family camping trips are postponed, campgrounds accidentally burned. It means recent high school graduates like me can't see the stars above their hometowns one last time before heading out to their new adventures. And I know there's not an easy solution to this annual nightmare. There are, of course, things I wish my community would do. Minimizing firework displays for the 4th is one. A spark can easily become a blaze, especially with the rurality of much of Idaho's south. I wish we would put more money and more manpower into firefighting. I wish we would pay attention when warned about climate change. There is no question that this year's fire season is so bad because of the drought and extreme temperatures. And yet, none of these solutions would completely eliminate wildfires. Even the things that could help wouldn't be enough. I just turned 18, and I cannot do it all. I cannot fight fire on the front lines. I cannot enact legislation. But I can write this love letter to my home state, to her burning forests, and her 2 warm rivers, and her mountains ablaze, and her rolling hills blackened with soot. to her skies dotted with stars I cannot see in August and her reddened sunsets. I'm standing on the precipice of this new life, and still I find myself turning to the south, looking up at the stars I cannot see. I'm standing on the precipice of freedom, and yet I still find myself looking to this fiery, headstrong community of mine. I'm standing on the precipice of adulthood, and I still cannot begin to make myself think about this world we're leaving for our children. I want to think of the next 11-year-old girl who will sleep in my childhood bedroom, leaning out her window to spot the Big Dipper's handle like I did Orion's belt. I want her to hike, and I want her to camp, and I want her more than anything to breathe easy. But listen to me. Listen to me. I want her to see the stars.